Start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you could please take your seats here. Thank you. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. This meeting is being live streamed. Members, in order for online attendees to hear, please make sure you are unmuted your microphone when speaking. Please identify yourself when making or seconding a motion so that the secretary can capture who is making those motions. For those attending in person, please complete the sign-in sheet located in the hallway before you leave. If you wish to make a public comment, please fill out the public comment card and return it to a staff member. For those participating via Zoom, please keep your microphones muted unless you are called upon to speak. When appropriate on the agenda, we will request comments from those online, and you can indicate your desire to speak via the chat box. Staff is monitoring Zoom and will recognize you when it's time to speak. Aaron, please call the roll.
Mayor Bennett,
Present.
Frank Beal, President Brawley.
Here.
Mayor Curry, Mayor Grasso, Mayor Hofert,
Here.
Nina Idamudia, Mayor Noak, President Reinbold, John Robertson,
Present.
Mayor Rodering, Joanna Ruiz,
Present.
Carolyn Schofield, Ann Sheehan,
Here.
Matt Walsh, Leanne Redden, and Dr. Mohammadian.
So we do have a quorum. I know we have two other people should be here shortly. But as required by law, we must vote upon the persons on Zoom, and it's we have Mayor
Hofert.
Oh, that's right, Mayor Hope from DuPage. I'll entertain a motion that we allow the mayor to participate. Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all in favor, signify by a vote of aye. Those opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor Hofert, representing Northwest Municipal Conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would
Thank you.
stand and join with me in a moment of silence for recognition commemoration of the 9/11 event. Thank you. We'd also like to welcome two new board members, anxiously wanting to participate with this group. First, as indicated, Mayor Jada Curry. Mayor, welcome. And also from the city of Chicago, Joanna Reese. Welcome.
Mayor Curry, did you want to, and Joanna, either of you want to just say any words about yourself before we get started here?
Mike,
Oh.
on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jada D. Curry. I am the mayor of the village of Linwood, which is just south of Chicago. I've been mayor for 3.5 years, preparing for re-election. I am excited to be a part of this board. I believe in rolling up my sleeves and doing the hard work, and so that is what I plan to do with this board. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Welcome. Joanna?
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Ruiz. I work at Wall & Gomez Architects. My background clearly is architecture. I've been there for 17 years. So I have a different angle and background to bring to the board. Looking very forward to working with everyone, and excited to see what the future holds.
Thank you. Executive Director's Report.
Great. Thank you very much. And I think one of the beauties of this board is that, when the stakeholders were creating CMAP, one of the principles that they brought to the table was just that we wanted to make sure that government and business and private and non-for-profit partners were able to sort of get together and talk about the big picture of the region collaboratively, because it does truly take all of those stakeholders for us to be successful in implementing our long-range visions here. So thanks to both of you for joining. We're excited to have you at the table here. A few highlights since we last met. In August, the U.S. Department of Transportation invited CMAP to participate at a panel discussion. They were really focused on community engagement and equity. And so we brought to them a discussion on our Community Alliance for Regional Equity, or our CARE program. And we facilitated a conversation with a couple of our members that have been participating in this process for the past 2 years, and really to delve into, their understanding of regional planning, but also their partnership with us and how they really bring the work that they're doing to the table here that we have, and shared some really great insights. And so it was a pretty meaningful conversation, but the entire day was really made up of stakeholders who work in the public engagement field, public sector, private sector, sharing best practices. So thanks to my team for working on that. I thought it was a really great event that they brought here to the region, and USDOT was doing that in several cities across the country. Also in August, 4 of our members of the CMAP team traveled to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado to participate in the Clean Energies to Communities Summit, where they shared some of the progress that we're making on some different tests that we're working on to think about decarbonization scenarios for our transportation system. We're doing this work in partnership with ComEd. Excuse me, and with the Respiratory Health Alliance here, with Argonne National Laboratories and Oak Ridge National Laboratories. This is the outcome of a grant that we received in 2023 with the goal of really understanding what it's needed for us to reduce carbon emissions and greenhouse gases from the transportation system here across the region, but also thinking about the potential impacts on the electric grid, which is why we've got ComEd at the table with us. And then last week, we welcomed safety experts from across the country to join us here in a conversation about transportation safety and reducing traffic fatalities across the country, and really with a lens towards what are the opportunities for metropolitan planning organizations in this conversation. Oftentimes we aren't building the infrastructure, but we do play an important role in the policy development for the region and for our projects overall. And so really, we spent a lot of time talking about that safe systems approach that you heard about at our last meeting here, and how we can better incorporate that into our core planning functions. I also wanted to share with you that we've launched our household travel survey. It's called My Daily Travel. It's starting this fall. It really helps us understand how people are using the local roads and where they're using roads, transit, biking, walking to get to the places that they need to go. This is something that really helps us as we do our work on the modeling end of the planning work that we have here. We hope to hear back from at least 4,000 households. The survey is going out by invitation only to selected residents across the region starting this Friday. So to prepare for the launch of this full survey, we have collaborated with our transportation partners, the counties, and the COGS on ways to get this information out to validate our efforts here. So this survey is going to run through 2025, the spring of 2025. If you're interested in learning more, I'm sure my staff would be happy to talk to you about it. But you can also visit mydailytravelsurvey.com to learn more. On the safety front, CMAP's Safe Travel for All region-wide initiative to address traffic fatalities and serious injuries here in the region. One of the things that we've been working on is developing a first of its kind framework for safety action planning at the county level. So these safety action plans are underway. The goal is that in order to be able to be competitive for some of the federal hard infrastructure dollars, that everybody has to have the safety plan that meets the certain objectives and thresholds that the feds have put out. And so really these county action plans are kicking off in earnest. They are beginning the public engagement process. So you will see in DuPage and Lake and in Will counties, they now have online engagement platforms that are live. County steering committees are meeting regularly and connecting with people at in-person events. And then Cook and Kane and McHenry counties engagement platforms will be coming soon. And we, again, are happy to share with you sort of the unique regional safety action plan website that you have access to, but also, as you're thinking about your village newsletters or other communications tools, we'd be happy to provide you with information to make sure that it's getting out to stakeholders in your region. I have a little bit of a lengthy update here because
We haven't met in a couple
it's
months.
been a couple months, but also happy to share with you that our community data snapshots have been updated. Again, this is something that we do annually to help local leaders as they are tracking progress or applying for grants and making informed decisions about their communities. These data-rich snapshots, we do them for every community, Chicago community area, every county, and every municipality across the region here. It includes demographics, housing, employment, transportation habits, and other key details. And this year, I'm excited to announce a couple things. One is that now we've got more data included, if you didn't get enough. But we have important data on people with disabilities. We're including updated water source information, demand and pricing data, and then updated land use and employment data characteristics in the snapshot. So stuff that wasn't available before, stuff that hadn't been updated in a while. We're excited to be able to share that with you. And they didn't put this in my notes, but our new updated website also has an interactive map now where you can turn those data layers on and off. It's something that we've heard time and time again from our constituents that, they love the data, but sometimes it's nice to look at it on a map. And so this is sort of a choose your own adventure mapping tool for folks to be able to use. So we're excited about that as well. We also are kicking off our municipal survey. So every 2 years, we do a municipal survey where we reach out to stakeholders to ask questions about land use, about transportation, about housing. It's really important for us to understand what communities are being challenged by and what they would like from a regional agency to address. I think some of this helps justify the work and the funding that we get. So as those surveys go out, I'd encourage you, if you or your staff see those, to please participate. We will also, I can directly send that to you all as well so that you have it to share with your teams. This year's survey will include questions around climate, accessibility, transportation safety, some different areas that really relate to some ongoing work that we have here. On the legislative front, we've been following closely the Senate Transportation Committee hearings that have been taking place across the region as well on transit service. They've really provided the committee with critical local insights as the General Assembly debates navigates how they will address the fiscal cliff and reforms over the coming months here. We'll continue to monitor these hearings and have some follow-up discussions with legislators. We've already had a number of them to date to provide them with further information based on the research that we have done. But I just wanted to take a moment and thank Mayor Curry for her participation and Mayor Noak for his participation in the hearing that happened recently. Elevating, I was going to thank you regardless of whether or not you were here. Elevating the importance of the regional perspectives and the local perspectives on transit as the General Assembly takes bold action on our transit system. I'll just note that we've had 3 members join, Mayor Noak, Mayor Matt Walsh, and Nina Itamudia, just for the record here. And just to highlight for you all, if you hadn't noticed, Speaker Welch just recently announced the formation of a working group focused on public transit. Again, we look forward to providing that working group with some resources and information based on the work that we did over the past year. On the federal side, we have had the opportunity to present at 2 recent grant workshops hosted by members of our federal delegation. Congressman Garcia held a workshop for municipal stakeholders in his district with several state and federal agency partners, including IDOT, IEPA, USDOT, FEMA. And then Senator Durbin and Congresswoman Kelly held a workshop with these same partners for our South suburban communities. So I want to just thank staff for participating in that process and sharing information about CMAP. John Carpenter will give us a more detailed update on the legislative agenda item that we have here. Okay, you have a couple new things that we put at the table here. One is a handbook for you and for the MPO Policy Committee members. One of the things that I do is I meet with my peers from across the region, and someone was asking, hey, does anybody have a handbook for their board that they could share as a good example? And I realized we didn't have one. And so really just thinking about having the new members that we have and recognizing that, we have some people who've been here for a while, this would be a valuable tool. I hope that you find it as a valuable tool. Thanks to the team for putting tabs in there for you, making it organized here. But if you have input or feedback as you go through that or other things that you'd like to see included in there, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's also a QR code that directs you to a digital version of the handbook resources. And in the front inside pocket, you've also got a customized one pager, couple page handouts that include some of the work that we're directly doing in your county or your council area that you represent. So really trying to show you sort of the breadth and depth of our work, but also make it relevant to you as you go back to your day-to-day jobs and understanding what it is that we do here at CMAP. Okay, in closing, as a reminder, our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, October 9th. It is our joint meeting with the MPO Policy Committee members. So that will be on the second floor here in the offices because we do need a little bit bigger space to accommodate all of the members. And then I think just lastly, I'd like to introduce Claire Williams, who's back here over with staff. Claire is CMAP's new Deputy Executive Director of People and Operations here. She started in July. This is her first board meeting. She is overseeing all of the operations of the agency, IT, HR, finance, our DEI work, our program management, performance management, and more. So welcome and thank you, Claire. And then I don't know if I announced this too, but Laura, as I'm looking at you, Laura is our new Deputy Executive Director of Strategic Advancement. And so really focused on the day-to-day work and advancing our policies, objectives, and activities. And the combination of these two positions, I think, will round out the needs that we have here at CMAP and really be focused on internal services and our staff, and also really thinking about how we make our work more impactful across the region. So that is my updates for our meeting today. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of Aaron? Okay, move on with the agenda. Under what would be the consent agenda, there are two items, approval of minutes of June 12th. And also the second one is 401, which is an intergovernmental agreement for Cook County Assessor data. Data is available at no cost, but requires a resolution by the board that authorizes the executive director to enter into that agreement. And with the attachments are the memo of justification, the intergovernmental agreement with Cook, and a resolution that we are required to do for the GIS data. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all in favor, signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no,
Aye.
and the motion carries. Item 501, nomination of officers. Back in June, I had asked the executive director to collect the information from our members regarding the consideration of appointment of CMAP officers. And Aaron?
Thank you. You know, so at that direction, I met with a group of stakeholders from City of Chicago, from Cook County, representing the Collier counties as well, in an advisory capacity. The group has recommended to maintain the existing officers, excuse me, as they represent the desired geographical balance and provide a mix of position and experience. You know, at the conversation, we had Matt Walsh representing Cook, Nancy Rotering, Mayor Rotering representing the Collier counties. And hold on, a city representative. No, a city representative. Oh, and Frank Beal. Yes, that's right. Frank was on. Thank you. And Frank Beal. So at this time, recommending no changes. I'll just ask if any of the members wanted to share anything else about the discussion.
If not, there is a recommendation to approve the continuation of the officers. Any questions regarding that? If not, I'll entertain a motion to
So moved.
approval. Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by a vote of aye. Opposed, vote no.
Aye.
Motion carries. Under item 502, authorization to enter into a contract with CDM. Aaron?
Yes, so as the team sort of gets up to present here this morning, Amy Lee is going to provide a presentation, but I just wanted to provide some background on how we got here and why this is needed. So first, let me start by saying we are proud to be at the table with our partners, the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Chicago Transit Authority here to advance our shared goal of a modernized and improved 290 corridor. You know, the development office that we are standing up here is something that we think is going to help bring coordination and ultimately help us think about this project in a series of projects, but in a coordinated fashion moving forward. CMAP serves the region, through many different ways, but it's through partnership and collaboration and convening, really thinking about how we influence policies and advance projects through innovation and creative approaches to problem solving here. So we know that when we work together as a region and bring more voices to the table, we can be more successful. And I think as we thought about the development of this program, we really looked to some of the bigger successes that we've had, like Rebuild Illinois, like the CREATE program, a program to untangle rail, freight rail and passenger rail across the region. But those programs don't exist in a vacuum, and they really are important to have sort of all of the partners at the table talking about how to advance these big sticky problems here. So we had planned ahead for this partnership and allocated funds in our approved FY25 budget for this project here. And so as we set forth and think about this, I will hearken back, next slide, to Daniel Burnham. I know it's a little cheesy, but as a planner, it's hard not to quote him every once in a while, right? He envisioned this great series of boulevards across the region, helping to transform the way people got around Chicago and Northeastern Illinois. And of course said, make no little plans. But we are at a pivotal moment here as we think about how to continue Burnham's legacy and invest in the 290 corridor and the Blue Line together. And I think we steadfastly agree that this is a project that is not a little plan. Next slide. The CTA Forest Park Blue Line, which serves both the cities and the suburbs and all of the communities in between, is currently under a 70% slow zone order, and stations on that branch remain inaccessible. The 290 corridor is one of the most congested corridors across the country. It is also one of the most unsafe roadways in our region. It really needs to be modernized. Again, aging bridges, there are many of them across the corridors, you can see in the photo there, and aging pavement. The transit facilities need repair. They're inaccessible to customers with disabilities. They impact transit access and use because of that. The track's not fully been rehabilitated since the multimodal asset was originally constructed in 1958. So overall, the need for transit in this area is very high, especially when you look at the rest of the region as well. And thinking about not just the roadway facilities, because why does it exist, right? To move the people who live nearby and the goods that are coming from businesses nearby. There's a lack of access for pedestrians and for bicyclists who might want to traverse the system. I don't know if you've walked over any of those bridges from north to south there, but that is not a pleasant experience. And I think one of the things that we desire to do is think about the reconnection of the north and south here as well. So on to 2050, our region's long-range plan identified both the Eisenhower reconstruction, managed lanes, and the CTA Forest Park Blue Line reconstruction as a constrained regionally significant project. So this is in our plans and has been in our plans for quite some time. The project advances the three principles of the 2050 plan, promoting inclusive growth, strengthening resilience, and prioritizing our limited resources in a meaningful way here. And I think historically, these projects have been viewed as separate and parallel rather than bundled together comprehensively. And so we're hopeful that we can write a new chapter of this project here for our investments in Northeastern Illinois, where we are all at the table together advancing significant projects on behalf of the region here. This project has gained some recent attention from our stakeholders, elected officials, and transportation leaders and advocates, and they too agree that this is the highest priority for our region. It's the best opportunity to deliver many benefits to the entirety of the region overall, because when you reduce congestion in this part of our region, people stop doing things like taking the side streets to get to places and traveling at speeds that maybe they should be traveling on a highway and not on a local arterial road here. So I'm going to ask the team to play a short video here and then hand it over to Amy Lee, who will talk about a little bit more detail about the scope of the project. We're just working on the volume here, Mayor. Give us just a moment.
It looks like a good video.
Maybe it is a silent movie.
Yeah, that movie, yeah.
Friend. Well, we'll give it just another 30 seconds here, and if not, we can. Okay.
The U.S., redefining. This is the Eisenhower Corridor. It connected the western suburbs to the heart of the city, becoming the first multimodal interstate in the U.S., redefining growth and prosperity. But despite its critical role, time has taken its toll. Today, the corridor is overwhelmed by congestion, plagued by outdated infrastructure, marred by safety concerns, and incapable of fostering true community. The very corridor that once aimed to connect us now divides us. Countless bridges have become obsolete. Pavement and subbase date back to the 1950s. Trains on ailing tracks can move slower than rush hour traffic. Communities gather where the sounds of children playing have become lost in the sounds of cars, and pedestrians are forced to navigate narrow, dangerous paths along busy roads, paths that can be impossible for some. What's more, the Eisenhower Expressway stretch is the most congested road in America. Rush hours are anything but. With the demands of our modern world, this lifeline is failing to keep pace. But we have the power to change this. The time to reboot the heart of Chicago is now. Imagine a corridor where safety is paramount, where communities are reconnected and economic well-being thrives. It's time to look beyond patchwork solutions, to embrace a holistic approach, one that addresses all of the moving parts. By revitalizing the Eisenhower Corridor together, we can restore this vital artery, ensuring it pulses with life, not just for today, but for all tomorrows to come.
Great, thank you. Good morning. My name is Amy Lee. I go by she, her. I am the Deputy of Transportation here at CMAP, and I'm so very excited to be here with you. Better? Okay. Very excited to be here with you today alongside our partners here at CTA and IDOT to talk with you about the I-290 Blue Line Corridor and our plans to establish a corridor development office. Directors, for those of you who are mayors, I think you can appreciate this. Typically, the hardest places for you to think about investing and to think expansively about your own towns is right at the border of your jurisdictions. This is especially true if you have a neighbor who's in no position to share in your vision. Why is that? Well, because there's this unwritten rule, and sometimes our lawyers have taken the liberty. Sorry, I am quiet. I apologize. I don't like being up here for that reason, but there is this unwritten rule, and sometimes our lawyers have put it into writing that if you break it, you buy it, right? If a project in my jurisdiction encroaches upon yours and I start to impact your drainage system or your traffic lights, that's my cost to bear, right? If you take a look at our map, I don't know if we can get our slides up there yet. Okay, I'll keep on going. If you had a map to look at of our corridor, you would see that we have approximately 13 miles of opportunities that are ripe for the if you break it, you buy it clause. As an engineer, when we're talking about this corridor, we're talking about a corridor that has elevation issues, flooding issues. So it's not hard to imagine that small local investment becoming the thread that starts to unravel the sweater. Again, if we had the map, you would see that in this quarter, we have not only the CTA Blue Line Forest Park branch, but we have IDOT's I-290, and then there's also a major railroad that runs in there. And then as Aaron opened, we're also talking about a corridor that goes through and serves multiple Chicago city wards, as well as municipalities that span into suburban Cook and DuPage counties like Maywood and Oak Brook. There are a lot of jurisdictions in here. So when funding is limited, you can hardly blame a single jurisdiction for just wanting to fix their discrete project and then quickly getting out of there, because remember, if you break it, you buy it. But we need to change that mindset. The assets in this corridor are in disrepair. We've been talking about reconstructing this corridor for the past 20 to 30 years. So for the past 20 to 30 years, our patchwork way of fixing these near-term problems in this corridor is leading us down a long-term path to an overall broken Frankenstein's monster solution that just won't work for our region. If we took a step back, took down the silos, and didn't worry about where my jurisdiction ends and where another begins, we can start to consider something more visionary, something more transformative for this corridor and for our region. And then as Aaron opened, within this corridor, we have 2 regionally significant projects that were identified in our regional transportation plan. To the normal observer, this is one major multimodal corridor with a legacy of investments that, quite frankly, many other regions are right now trying to mimic and build today. What they are striving for in their tomorrow is what we have already today. But instead of thinking about how a new generation could thrive and prosper if we redevelop this corridor right, we have largely approached this corridor as a liability that needs to be incrementally fixed. And then as travelers come through this corridor, slugging through its disrepair, adjacent communities have come to turn their backs to it. It's an eyesore, viewing it much more like an alleyway as opposed to a lifeline to jobs and other destinations in the region. Next slide, please. So what do we want to do about that? Over the past year here at CMAP, we've had a lot of discussions with our partners. Through the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Grant that was awarded to us by the US DOT Build America Bureau, CMAP staff began discussions with our federal partners about opportunities for CMAP to be a convener of local implementing agencies to help advance projects in our region. CMAP also started discussions with CTA and IDOT around needing a new way of working together and needing to build consensus around a unified corridor vision. With much credit to Secretary Osman and President Carter, this has culminated in a joint statement of understanding that was signed by all 3 agencies, committing each of us to working together in this new way. Then in April, the members of the Build America Bureau came to our offices right here in this room. You can see the picture up there, and conducted a technical assistance workshop with all the partners to discuss the opportunities, challenges, and tangible next steps for the corridor, which now brings us to the formation of the Corridor Development Office. Next slide, please. Borrowing from the model of the CREATE program, as Erin alluded to in her opening, the I-290 Blue Line Corridor Development Office will provide a way for us to think about this corridor holistically. Instead of talking about IDOT's project, CTA's project, and all of us trying to figure out how those two fit together. The CDO will serve to bring a unified understanding of these projects together and will help establish a common vision for what this corridor's hope to be in the future. This framework will provide organization not only around the coordination that is needed around engineering and construction, but it'll also help elevate decisions that sit on the critical path. In my time at the tollway, I've been around a lot of large projects, and I can attest that if decisions are not made in a timely fashion, the consequences are costly, especially when we see historic price escalation. The CDO will get us out of the business of saying that decision is not my problem and will instead help to inform, support, and prioritize collective decision-making to make sure we're all doing our best with limited public dollars. Also, for us to approach this reconstruction right, we have to realize that this corridor isn't only about traveling through it. It's also about creating synergies between this lifeline and the communities and the businesses that seek to thrive along it. This is CMAP's core mission. How can we make sure that a significant investment in this transportation corridor will also translate to the vitality and economic growth for those adjacent communities? So to that end, the CDO will also bring coherence to the constellation of issues that need to be integrated into our comprehensive planning and implementation of this corridor. Next slide, please. So the scope of the Corridor Development Office Program Servicer, as advertised in our RFP, includes developing a unified corridor vision that will provide clarity and improve messaging around what we are all working toward. And since we are not interested, I don't think any of us are interested in coming up with a vision that just sits on the shelf, the program servicer will also be tasked with developing a comprehensive funding and financing plan. They will weave and sequence individual project components into an overall corridor program so that we can track progress, so that we can alleviate barriers to implementation and keep things moving. All the while, we'll continue to prioritize near-term improvements to address state of good repair needs. Next slide, please. In response to our RFP, I am pleased to say we had robust interest. We had 4 responsive proposals. Through a selection process that also included our partners, evaluators from CTA and IDOT, we are together recommending CDM Smith for this contract. CDM's proposal strongly resonated with the stated goals and objectives of the CDO program servicer. Their team represented both depth and breadth of skills that are needed in this role. Also, their key personnel and task leads bring with them a tremendous amount of relevant experience from within the region as it relates to transit and roadway expertise. Next slide, please. So today we bring this procurement for your consideration to authorize the agency to enter into a contract with CDM Smith to serve as the program servicer of the I-290 Blue Line Corridor Development Office. This is a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options for renewal for an amount not to exceed $11 million. With that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Amy, Mayor?
What a great and obviously very, very necessary project. One question that comes up to me a few slides back, you talked about development of a financial plan, and we just talked about the issues that we're having with our regional transit fiscal cliff. My question is, does the CTA have the capacity for this project? Not to give you like an easy question.
Sure. So you're making reference to the fiscal cliff on their operating funds. That is absolutely a necessary component to considering, right, the feasibility of this moving forward as a multimodal system without a doubt. And so it's a valid point. I think though, what we see is that those systems are already in disrepair. And so there is need already to make sure that those projects are moving forward, to make sure that we are not living in the short term, but thinking in the long term. And so in part, the challenge of the CDO program servicer I would offer is that holding those two things in tension. The near-term needs and the long-term needs are going to be critical, but that's the sort of long-term commitment that we need to have to this corridor, recognizing just how much of our regional economy really hinges on this corridor.
Other questions? If not, that is the item before the board, and I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll move. and
Moved
as
and
everybody-
seconded. Any further questions? Multiple seconds. If the board prefers, I'll have Aaron read the roll on it. I'm looking at you, Carolyn.
Sounds good. Thank you. Mayor Bennett,
Aye.
Frank Beal, President Brawley.
Yes.
Mayor Curry, Mayor Grasso,
Yes.
Mayor Hopert,
Aye.
Nina Itamudia,
Yes.
Mayor Noak,
Yes.
President Reinbold,
Yes.
John Robertson,
Yes.
Mayor Rotering,
Yes.
Joanna Ruiz,
Yes.
Carolyn Schofield,
Yes.
Ann Sheehan,
Yes.
Matt Walsh.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Step
you.
one of
Step one of a big project that we're excited to tackle. And I think hopefully if something, we envision this as possibly an opportunity for us to think about other multimodal corridors and collaboration across the region. So thank you.
Thanks. Next item is on the executive session. As we've done in the past, the board can go into exec session. It's to review and dispose of other old exec session minutes. If not, we can skip the exec session and based upon the recommendation of staff and council, go to the item of, which would be the action item and approve what is staff and council has recommended. Aaron, you want to take it from there? Is there a request to go to exec session on this? It appears not, so go ahead, Aaron.
Great, thanks. So we do need a motion then, and a second to release the, thank you.
There is a motion to approve item 602, and again, it's releasing and disposing of old minutes. Any further questions regarding that? If not, all in favor signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Moving on, item 701, Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership Update. Tony?
Morning, everybody. Morning, Mayor. Nice to see everyone. I'm Tony Mano, he, him pronouns. I'm a principal planner in the planning division here at CMAP. I'm very excited today to talk to you about our regional economy and regional collaboration work, which we just talked about. So we're going to carry on the theme now. I'd like to start by pointing to one of the principles of Onto 2050, the one that's inclusive growth, and acknowledging that our region's economy will grow if we create opportunity for all. And many of the recommendations and strategies in 2050 acknowledge this and is a focus of our regional economy work. Also, our strategic direction points to 4 related approaches: supporting regional economic collaboration to attract investment throughout the region, developing resources and coordinated solutions for an inclusive regional economic and industrial strategy, as well as to overcome structural barriers to economic opportunity, and prioritizing engagement with historically underrepresented communities. I said there were 4, but I combined 2 of them in the middle, so I hope no one was doing the math in your head like I was just doing, thought I screwed up. But staff has drafted a framework to guide this work over the next 5 years, and you'll hear more about that at subsequent meetings throughout the next year. But some aspects we're working on right now include expanding our site and corridor planning technical assistance, additional work on our industry clusters, and continuing to foster regional collaboration. And a major effort in this space is continuing to work with the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership on a longer-term economic strategy for our region. And so speaking of that, I'm very excited to introduce some guests today to actually talk to you about the partnership and the great things that have happened over the past year and a half and a little bit of what's to come. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to our special guests. I'd like to introduce Mr. Greg Bedelov, the president and CEO of Choose DuPage and the current chair of the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. We also have Kyle Schultz and Chris Chides from World Business Chicago. So Greg, I think you're starting. Sure. That's cool. Great. Thank you.
Welcome, Greg.
Good morning, everyone. As Tony mentioned, my name is Greg Bedlove. I am the president and CEO of Choose DuPage. I also serve as the advisory board chair for the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. Make my comments brief because I'm going to let Chris and Kyle give an overview of GSEP as we complete our second year of regional economic development and collaboration, I want to simply thank CMAP and the Brookings Institute and TIP Strategies and many other partners who helped us spin GSEP up, get it off the ground, and have some successes during our initial 18 months. As we develop and as we continue to evolve into GSEP 2.0, we will be asking CMAP for additional guidance and additional counsel on the next steps to make sure that GSEP is sustainable, relevant, and most importantly, successful. So with all of that being said, I know you want to hear about our successes and our strategies and our path forward. And I'm going to introduce Kyle Schultz and Chris Chaidez from World Business Chicago, who acts as the service partner for the 7 counties and the city of Chicago, the participating jurisdictions who are working together for regional economic growth and collaboration. Kyle?
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Really excited to be here to talk about what the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership has accomplished in our first 18 months. For those of you who have been familiar with the pursuit of regional economic development, this is at least the 3rd iteration in which the counties, city, World Business Chicago have attempted to come together and partner on an effort to attract inclusive investment for all of our metropolitan area. In the lead up to this conversation, our original deck was close to 30 slides. That's how much we've accomplished in just 15 months. But to save all of you and to make sure that Aaron continues to answer my phone calls in the future, we have scaled this down. But we are very proud of the work that we've done in these last 17, 18 months to bring this to life. And I'd like Chris Chaidez, who is the day-to-day project manager for this partnership, to walk through some of the successes we've had. Greg and I will jump back in because we both like to talk and hear ourselves champion the causes we're passionate about. But Chris, please take it away.
Thank you, Kyle. And good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here today. Let me get this a little bit closer to myself.
I never do this correctly.
All right. Thank you very much. So just for some context, as Kyle was mentioning, I do a lot of the day-to-day work for the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. What that means is I get to spend a lot of time in the suburbs. I get to spend a lot of time out in the counties, actively working on some of these projects, as well as just being able to bring the opportunities to the counties through the organization overall. So on this slide is sort of just an overview of the partnership in 2024, but really the success that we've seen over the year too. That includes hosting over 35 international businesses throughout Chicagoland for Select Shy, being recognized as the top metro according to site selection for 11 years, as well as bringing home a major win for the region. Many of you may already be familiar with it, but just queuing it up for later on in the presentation. All right, so a very high-level progress snapshot of what we've been able to do as the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership throughout the past year and a half. Some of the metrics that we go ahead and base our success around are really metrics that mean how are we engaging with the community, how are we engaging with the partners. The first one being event invitations. What event invitations are really just opportunities, unique opportunities that are shared out. This can be international trips, this can be delegations. It may just be opportunities to sit together and speak about what's going on and how we can better the organization. This also includes research requests for information from our research center, regional innovation and venture events. So bringing in our innovation and venture team to support as well, regional project leads. So these are opportunities shared out with the partners, as well as one that I'd really like to focus on real quick, the pro-Chicagoland decisions. So when GSEP was originally initiated, as we were looking at metrics, one of the main ones was, what is a pro-Chicagoland decision? So that would be a decision of a company to either come to Chicago or expand within Chicago as well. At the inception, we decided that over the course of the 3 years, this would be 150. As of right now, about a year and a half in, we're at 102. All right, so an overview of some of the initiatives. As I mentioned, we have something called our regional share initiatives. Again, these are just ways to engage with the partnership. Two that I'd really like to specifically point out is the Select Shy 2024, which I'll be talking about in the next slide, as well as the Brazilian Text Connection delegation. This was the opportunity of 30 Brazilian companies within tech-based startups, corporations that actually came not just to the city, but had the opportunity to go out into Kendall, had the opportunity to go out into McHenry County, which are really opportunities that they may not have had before the partnership. Yeah.
Just to add to this, one of the reasons why this is a called out KPI that we track is because we've had mayors in the city of Chicago in the recent past that have done a bad job in growing a regional economy. Their economic development philosophy could be summarized as robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that created some resentment amongst our regional partners and local communities about how WBC approached our work. And so in the spirit of cooperation, we wanted to show that there was a new dawn, thankfully under John and Mayor Johnson's leadership, that was we have opportunities. We want our regional partners and our communities across this beautiful area to be able to see the interest and investment opportunities that WBC gets to see. So this is a reason, so we are trying to show that we work in good faith with this KPI.
Thank you, Kyle. Next slide, please. So one of these more recent opportunities was the opportunity to hold an event here in the city of Chicago called Select Shy, based around the Select USA Investment Summit, which is an annual event. We were able to bring 35 international companies here to Chicago. That included 15 international leaders. We did unique Chicagoland tours, not just here in the city at organizations such as M-Hub, but also outside in the counties as well, here in Cook County as well as DuPage County. This also included a welcome reception, and really the main takeaway was, Chicago is a global city, but the region is also a global region. As part of the GSEP, we're also able to support initiatives. One such initiative that was brought up by Greg to support was the Chicago Botanical Garden. So we provided a letter of support, essentially being able to have, this will actually be the first time it's held in 27 years in North America. It'll be coming to Chicago in 2027. So really some of the most important work that's part of this initiative, aside from the business development, is really the ability to share out our research center's data analytics and really what underlies these projects as well. So some of the accomplishments from our research center includes 80 requests of information. So this is being able to provide that data out to the GSEP partners, expanding really their concierge services, which includes analytical programs for municipalities, economic dashboards, and really the main objective that they're working on right now is something called the global branding identity, which is really, how does Chicagoland stand out, and how do we brand ourselves to the rest of the world?
Chris, can I interject here? Mm-hmm. So especially for the local mayors in the room, this is an enormous asset that an organization like Choose DuPage simply never had the availability to deliver to our local municipalities. Research and analytics are very expensive. Software programs are very expensive. Because of this partnership, organizations like Choose DuPage and the other participating jurisdictions now have access through World Business Chicago. And as Kyle pointed out, to be blunt, as recently as 5 years ago, we never would have had access to this type of information. And it's used by local municipalities throughout the region on strategic planning, corridor analysis, and the metaphor, the bad example that I like to use is, why don't I have a Trader Joe's in my downtown? And how can I get a corner bakery in my downtown? And having access to that data in the site selection and the consulting community is absolutely critical. And as I mentioned in DuPage County, we're making it available to the local municipalities. So there's additional benefit to everyone in this room and the local mayors and the local village managers to get this information and use it as you all do your strategic planning and your corridor analyses to determine how you can drive economic development opportunities within your own individual towns.
Okay, so this is more of a focus around what specific data requests have been sent out. Happy to share this just due to sort of the amount of information, but if we can just go to the next slide, please. All right, a quick overview of our innovation and venture team as well, and some events that they have coming up, our Future FinTech Week.
We didn't have a meeting about it. No one talked to me about it.
Yeah, I know.
Again, oops, all right. Again, just being able to share these out with GSEP partners to engage the tech companies that they have within their region. As well as our Think Chicago Launchpad, which is our flagship STEM talent program, to really focus on what talent we have in Chicagoland, how do we keep them here? Okay. So when it comes to pro Chicagoland decisions, as I mentioned, really being able to bring the GSEP together to support some of these initiatives. One that I'd like to call out, and actually the picture was from yesterday morning, was S&C Electric Company, which for those of you that are familiar is a global provider of equipment and services based here in Chicago. Due to the work of the GSEP as well as other partners, we were able to help S&C Electric make a pro Chicagoland decision, as well as expand their footprint into Palatine, expected to create 200 production and engineering jobs. Again, that occurred yesterday morning.
I would want to call back, if we could go, thank you, to this project, this opportunity as the galvanizing moment when GSEP started to work together. S&C Electric Company is the largest homegrown manufacturer in Chicago. 3,500 jobs in the Rogers Park neighborhood on the north side. It is the economic powerhouse for the northern part of this city. And in 2022, March of 2022, their VP of Manufacturing Fabrication called and said, Kyle, we need to expand. Market demand has gone crazy. We need to move a division of our operation off our Rogers Park campus. How can Chicago help? WBC stepped in, and when it became very clear that Chicago did not have a site that could fit, and that S&C was openly talking to Kenosha, Wisconsin, is when we decided to say, all right, let's see how this regional partnership will actually work. And so organizing a call with S&C Electric executives and what has become the GSEP partnership showed that they could stay in Chicago, expand their footprint in Chicagoland, and be treated as the powerhouse that they are. So the picture yesterday was one of the proudest accomplishments I've had in my career, because it showed that regional partnerships could work in this community and in this region, and we could help companies grow and expand and add to our manufacturing credentials. Okay, cool. If we go to the next slide, please. This is the one that Chris teed up a moment ago. This is Psi Quantum. And this project happens in part because of John's leadership and Mayor Johnson's commitment to this. But for us to land what will ultimately be $20 billion of capital invested into the former U.S. Steel Mill at 87th and Lakeshore Drive on the southeast side of the city, it only started because the GSEP partnership existed. When this company originally reached out to us, they had a severe apprehension of being in the city of Chicago. Their quote to me that stood with us early on and throughout the process was, big city, big bureaucracy. We do not want to be in the city, but we'd be interested in being in Chicagoland. And over the course of 13 months, we worked with this company to identify initially 25 sites in the Chicagoland area, working that down to a final 2, which was the USX site in Chicago, which ultimately was chosen for the investment, and the former Chevron site out in Lockport, which is now the Star Innovation District. And during this process, regionalism worked as it was supposed to. Both communities working to make sure the investment came to Chicagoland and pushing each other to put forth the best competitive offer within the means of what each city could afford. So this project is possible because of CMAP's leadership, Aaron, Tony's guidance in getting us to this point. But I also do want to call out John Roberson, because without his support, commitment to this being a sounding board for us, this would not have happened. It was his conviction throughout the early days when we were pitching them that made it possible, as well as his trusted confidence with Mayor Johnson to bring this home. So this is a huge win. We are in essentially a space race or a second Manhattan project to win quantum as a country. China, Russia, other hostile foreign countries are trying to get ahead of quantum, as it'll be the next breakthrough economy. And for us to be the center where all of this innovation will take place in the United States will set us up to be what Silicon Valley is to San Francisco, but we will be that for quantum for the next 50 to 75 years. Next slide, please.
Okay. And the last pro Chicagoland decision, being an international company, Perla Table Foods, here in the US called Perla Foods USA, a Polish specialty foods manufacturer. When they were looking to make their first foreign direct investment into the US, Chicagoland to them specifically called their attention just due to our food and beverage market, as well as customers within the region. We were able to, as the GSEP, bring together the city of North Aurora, Kane County, the state, as well as other partners that help support their decision to make that first investment into the US here, again, bringing with it 200 jobs, as well as a $33.3 million investment.
So at 18 months into this partnership, we've had tremendous success in building trust, scaling opportunity, and seeing our regional economy grow. Now we're at the point where we're looking ahead to what happens with GSEP 2.0. I'm very appreciative that Erin has allowed her team to work with us to start mapping out and framing how we will continue to work as a region. What are the next horizons that we need to take on so that we continue to be an attractive source of investment? My final joke, and I'll turn it over to Greg to close us out, is when we kicked off GSEP 2.0, Brookings, who had been brought in to help consult us, pulled me aside and said, Kyle, we know you're a big football guy, so I hope you take this note seriously. There are only 2 regions in the United States that don't have regional economic development partnerships. They're Chicago and Cleveland. Both of your teams suck at football and don't make the playoffs. Is there a direct correlation? Brookings' thesis was yes. And now with Caleb Williams and this defense in place and the GSEP partnership working, I think we can see a clear correlation between regionalism and playoffs and Super Bowls. Greg, you can follow that.
Don't know how I can follow that, other than to once again, thank CMAP, Tony, Austin, Aaron, the entire team here to help make this a reality. We're at a critical point. We're 18 months into this operation, and we want to make sure that it's sustainable. We want to make sure that we continue to drive private sector involvement, private sector investment into this opportunity, and we want to make sure that we continue on a path of inclusive growth throughout the region. You know, I guess I'll just close with the Psi Quantum deal as well. Imagine a guy from economic development in DuPage County driving down to Hyde Park to help close a deal for the city of Chicago. Or imagine the reverse. I think we can all go back into our memory banks and think 5 years ago, as Kyle pointed out, it would have been, we can't accommodate you. Good luck with your next request. DuPage can't accommodate you. Good luck with your next request. This is not new. As Kyle mentioned, we're long overdue in this. And now with the mayor's office leadership, with the governor, with the ecosystem, with Intersect Illinois, with the local economic development organizations, we're really uniquely positioned to win where we deserve to win and to really elevate the Chicagoland area into a super region. And that starts with initiatives like GSEP and making sure that we take it to the next level. So any of us are happy to answer any questions or comments that you may have, any ideas. But again, thank you so much to CMAP. Kyle wasn't involved in the first 2 iterations of regional economic development. He's not that old. I'm old enough that I was involved in them. And I really feel confident that this time we got it right. We have the commitment from the elected officials. We have the financial backing to make this thing a reality, and we just want to see it go forward.
Sure, go ahead, Doctor.
Well, thank you so much.
Could you turn your microphone on, please, for folks online? Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks so much for the presentation. I would just want to actually have a suggestion. Maybe you just want to actually just also try to consider one of the biggest assets that we have in this region, 2 big type 1 research universities that are powerhouse of the region. And we not only actually just lots of startups coming up out of these universities. Basically, you don't want actually them to move right away to Bay Area. You want them actually just to work with them to invest to make sure that you keep them here. The other one is actually just we each one of these universities. I'm faculty at the University of Illinois Chicago. We actually just every year we get several thousand important actually just international students coming doing graduate level studies here, and they go back to their country. You invite 35 actually just delegations. You have several thousand of them actually just spending a year, 2 years here. They go back to become leaders in their country. So just trying to.
Yeah, thank you very much for that suggestion. And I will share with you that as GSEP 2.0 evolves, regional asset mapping, I encourage you, and maybe Chris can share it with Erin and she can get it out to the members of this board. For the first time, we have conducted a regional asset mapping exercise, which includes our universities. Selfishly, DuPage County, it includes the fact that we're home to 2 national laboratories, and the innovation and the entrepreneurship that spins out of those national laboratories, along with those universities, and maintaining that talent there, and that intersection of workforce development with economic development and entrepreneurship is all on the table for GSEP 2.0. Thank you for bringing that up.
Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. Greg, good to see you. We've known each other for a number of years. It's, as a local mayor, really absorbed a lot of information here on GSEP, and I can see its overall advantages. However, as a member of the CMAP board, how does GSEP better integrate plans for transportation and land use? Our focus is on transportation here. And how do you help us in that regard?
Well, especially in light of the fact that we're in a changing economy, right? With hybrid work and remote work, and in our neck of the woods out in DuPage County, where we kind of grew up as an office county with big office corridors along I-88, along 55. How do we incorporate transit, and how do we incorporate transportation into our planning, along with all of the research and the data that GSEP is now providing us? So the short answer to that question is we work with Aaron, and we make sure that CMAP is part of this process, and CMAP is part of our markets that we identify, because this all grew, Mayor, this grew out of the recovery plan under Mayor Lightfoot and President Preckwinkle coming out of COVID, of what markets do we deserve to win in? And if we look at transportation corridors and having some experience, I saw Amy here, having some experience at the tollway where I was fortunate to work for 3.5 years, we know that transportation and those corridors is going to be absolutely essential, and how data centers play into those corridors, how transportation distribution and logistics play into those corridors. So I think that's a long answer, and maybe the better shorter answer, and Kyle, you can weigh in on this if you want, is let's look at where the economy is going. Let's look at where our transportation networks support markets that we've identified as having an opportunity where we deserve to win, and let's target those industries. But we have to do it by working with transportation planning organizations. We're not transportation planners. Anything to add?
Okay. Thank you for that. And my colleague asked the question before I could even ask the question. So I appreciate that. As the resident planner, I've worked for 5 mayors across 2 major cities, and I know how hard it is to think about regional economic development. So I really commend the work that you all have done thus far. My question to kind of piggyback off of the first question is, in the reverse, how are you working with planners, CMAP or otherwise, in these other municipalities to also inform and say, hey, we have a space here that, a business may want to take part in, but there's no housing and there's no transit. Because I feel as though your kind of information that you're getting from business owners could also help to shape that. So that's more of a comment and a suggestion. If that's not already being done, there should be more coordination, especially in the planning departments of these municipalities. One stakeholder group that I have not heard you all talk about is the people, because, Kyle, I think you said a few things that triggered me, especially working in California. You said, the new Silicon Valley. Well, there's cons to that, right? There's displacement. There is inequitable kind of access to inclusive growth or equity in economic development. And I would love to understand more, if you already haven't done it, is like the sizes of business that you've been helping, the type of research that you've been giving those businesses. Are they owned by Black and brown people? Are they owned by women? If there are gaps in services of people coming to you, how are you seeking them out to make sure that they have a place in making sure our inclusive growth in the region is actually inclusive? And then also, how are you working to make sure that the things that you all are suggesting to business owners actually do work in consult with what the people want? Because there are lots of controversial projects that are happening, whether you have your own opinion about them or not, that are affecting communities, and communities are saying, like, this big business is coming into our community and could potentially displace us or harm our communities even more, especially on the south and west sides of Chicago, where there's already environmental justice issues. And I know the mayor really cares about that. So you can comment on any of the things that I said, but there's probably a lot to think about, and I would love to hear more.
I'll add one thing, and that's for historically underserved communities, access to capital. and access to additional resources to help spin up those businesses. And as I mentioned in my opening comments, private sector involvement is going to be key. And the goal of GSEP during the first year to 18 months, let's spin this thing up. Let's get it established. Let's get some wins. And then instead of the traditional economic development model has always been in this area, let's go to the private sector and get them to write us a check. And then let's run an economic development organization. We decided to do this in reverse. We decided, let's show some success, and then let's wait for the business community to come to us and say, how can we be involved on access to capital? How can we be involved in underserved communities? How can we put our time and our talent and our resources behind that? And we're not there yet, just to be blunt. We're not there yet, but we hope to be there as we go into GSEP 2.0.
Other questions?
Let me just put a little finer, oh, Frank, did you want to? I was just going to sort of make the connection between our work here as a board and the GSEP regional economy space here is that, you know, when we develop our long range plans, the 2040 plan, the 2050 plan, and soon to be, I don't know what we want to call it yet, plans, I won't presuppose. But really that vision that we articulate here as a board that you articulate here on behalf of the region has core pillars, and regional economic growth is one of those core pillars that we've upheld for a very long time. And so our role as a convener, as a policymaker, as a researching organization, those policy levers that we use have continued to point to the fact that we do need this regional effort. And so being at the table with GSEP as they think about, I think, the land use considerations, as they think about, you know, how do we bring more local communities into the process, into a regional process that provides great value to them too, is going to be sort of that next iteration of support that we're looking forward to working with GSEP partners.
And let's,
on here.
Aaron, if I may, let's not forget our friends at DCEO. Let's not forget our friends at Intersect Illinois, because finally, maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but I feel like we're finally at the point where we're looking at economic development as an ecosystem, from the local level, from the Chamber of Commerce, from the downtown management corporations, all the way up to the state of Illinois, to have a team together when we go on sales calls, when we do market analyses that includes all levels of government, is an absolute first in my experience in economic development.
Frank?
Yeah, I really.
Oh, Frank, would
Frank,
you mind turning your
good to see
microphone
you.
on?
What I've heard, it's terrific. The accomplishments in 18 months are remarkable. And as someone mentioned, over the last 3 decades, there have been several efforts to do this. None of them have come anywhere close to what you have accomplished so far. So congratulations for all that success. I'm delighted to hear it. What it's done is overcome one of the things that's been a handicap in the Chicago region, is the us versus them, city versus suburbs. That dynamic is destructive in something particularly like the economy. I mean, the economy is the #1 example of a regional phenomenon. Shoppers, workers, finance, banks, they don't care about political jurisdictions. They make their decisions totally independent of political jurisdictions, mostly independent of political jurisdictions. So you've really demonstrated the importance of an integrated region. And to your point, the second most important example of the importance of regionalism, and interconnectedness and interdependency is our transportation system. It is a regional system, and it succeeds or fails if it's done on a regional basis. So I'm delighted you're working with CMAP. And just to add to my thanks to Erin and her staff for moving this forward and being the catalyst for moving this forward along with the city and with the counties. You deserve a lot of thanks. You and your staff deserve a lot of thanks. So.
Yeah, can you imagine a deal where a company headquartered in Michigan with offices in Fulton Market is looking to expand? They reach out to P33, and P33 reaches out to WBC, and there's just not a deal that can happen in Chicago, and they land in Itasca, where Choose DuPage doesn't get involved in it, and WBC/GSEP leads an economic development win for the region that creates 150 new jobs. Frank, you've been around long enough to know that that just wouldn't have happened.
That wouldn't have happened.
Wouldn't have happened.
Wouldn't have happened. It would have been us.
We'd have lost them to Michigan.
John, go ahead.
Let's just keep in mind too, in perspective, that this effort, while good, is really focused on a handful of larger deals typically. The vast majority of deals are still being happen well outside of the scope of this. So some of the things that people are talking about, those questions are probably better suited on those scales. At the end of the day, the vast majority of deals are being done at the municipal level. My concern from this entity from the beginning is I don't think it has enough diverse municipal voices on it because they are the ones in the front lines making these deals happen. So as it goes forward, I'd love to see more of that done. But it's a great effort. But let's keep in mind, there's a lot of economic development efforts that are happening in concurrence with this at the same time. So this is great. It's great for these regional projects, but there's a lot of other things going on out there. The vast majority of economic development in this region is still happening on the ground level.
No, no doubt. And again, it was through COVID and the action of our agency to bring this partnership together. Been around as long as Frank has, and so many failures in the past.
Thanks.
But I think,
That long?
I didn't say what time. But I think what the importance here is that it is, John, it is at a higher level for national or international companies to look at our region, and again, to do it in a partnership with Chicago and the counties of assisting in locations. And I think as the gentlemen have offered to the municipalities, to local governments, is join in on it or inquire with them or list with them opportunities in all the suburbs throughout the metropolitan area. As I think the first comment was, the fight that goes on between, especially suburbs, one, McDonald's moving to another city because they don't like the location. It's a net zero. What we're looking at in net gains and bringing things outside the metropolitan area to the metropolitan area, whether that's small business or in this case, on a larger scale, international or national businesses coming in. So it's critical. And again, I would encourage mayors, as if you've sat here and listened to this, to pick up a phone and speak to the gentleman here and offer whatever, potential land opportunities you have or building opportunities to get on the list.
We'd welcome that chance to understand what's happening in each of your communities and how we can be aware of the advantages. Each of the case studies that we shared that were investment wins only came about because we worked in concert with the local community. S&C Electric doesn't go to Palatine unless the Palatine leadership answers the phone and works with us. The perspective of GSEP and World Business Chicago's first mandate is to support the city of Chicago. We have 77 neighborhoods that we're focusing on there. GSEP, there are 280 somethings, 84 municipalities in this area. The GSEP structure allows us to work with each county to understand who those communities are and how we can get in quick access with those municipalities, because it is the frontline community that is going to help in sealing the deal, whether it's processing a permit faster, accentuating the quality of life that you will receive in that area. So we recognize very much that the local level needs to be involved, and in concert with Tony and Aaron over the last few days, as we've talked about what GSEP 2.0 looks like, we do need to have municipal voices at the table with us to really take this to the next level. So
As a point of clarification, you're defining community as a municipality, not the people around a particular project? I just want a point of clarification. So when you say you're working with the community, you're working with the municipalities, or are you working with community and community groups, or both?
It's both.
Okay. And you have that outlined in your report that you're working with community partners who are not tied to the municipalities?
It depends on the project and what the opportunity looks like.
Okay.
Oftentimes though, when it is going to a local community, we'll let the community leadership tell us who needs to be at the table.
Okay. We can unpack that. In 2.0, let's talk.
That's why I asked Kyle if I could have the mic for a minute. This is why we're here, because we recognize as we go into GSEP 2.0 and we want to take it to the next level. Mayor Noak, I agree with you 1,000%. 99% of every deal that happens in Will or DuPage happens at the local level. we've always acted as the back room for the local municipalities. We want to continue to act as the back room for the local municipalities. We just feel like we can now elevate that capability and we can bring more stakeholders to the table, because when something, as you know, and you've been a champion of it for many years, when something great happens in Romeoville, it helps Naperville, it helps Joliet, it puts people in hotels, it puts people in restaurants, and to engage community partners as we refine and advance. That's kind of why we need, CMAP has been such a kind of a guiding light for us to get this off the ground. And as we take it to the next level, we need CMAP to help keep us focused on those issues.
Thanks. We have one more question. Mayor, you're online.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
So, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So to tie into a lot of what's been said already, and couple of things. One is, if I, and maybe you do have this, there was a lot of information to unpack and understand in your presentation. But two things. One, I would think having a complete inventory and I'm a regional guy. I mean, I represent Northwest Municipal Conference. In some ways, I represent Mount Prospect on this board. But I would think you'd have an inventory of available sites and their sizes for development opportunities into the future. And you maybe this is how you do it, kind of look around and see, okay, where do these projects fit? The other thing is, there's a greater benefit to the region if some of these developments go into brownfield sites versus greenfield sites, because some of these projects are huge and they can well afford potentially to clean up brownfield sites in communities that need those sites cleaned up that may never otherwise be cleaned up. And so brings an incredible resource to those communities, neighborhoods in Chicago, and frankly, in the entire region. The other thing is, as a representative of Northwest Municipal Conference, there are lots of places in the Northwest, and I know Palatine, I read about it and I've heard about it today. Got the electric is going, S&C Electric is going there. That's great. And that benefits all of us. I get all that. I've got the regional hat on. But, there are plenty of places in the Northwest for development. And I don't know, and there's plenty of places, frankly, in Mount Prospect. I don't think anybody contacted Mount Prospect. I don't know how many communities in the Northwest that you contacted about opportunities. But again, I would think you'd keep and it would be a long list, an inventory of potential places for development. So, and I'm not being critical. I'm just saying there's a lot of opportunity throughout the entire region to have new business come in. And the opportunities that we have developed in Mount Prospect or in the Northwest, primarily, as it's already been said, has been done at the local level, working with various corporations. So that's just a comment. What I've just said, it's not necessarily looking for a response, but I wanted to at least put it out there and reinforce some of the things that were said. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think some of these questions can be answered as we continue to come back and talk to you about some of the technical assistance that we offer to local communities and sub areas throughout the region. We are helping with the community engagement, because that is definitely a part of all of our projects too, and a lot of the corridor planning, site planning, and things like that. So I think hopefully that kind of answers some of these questions. That there will be more to come on that, on CMAP's role in all this, particularly as it relates to the technical assistance and addressing a lot of your concerns for sure. Yes.
Tony, is there a specific,
Oh, would you turn your microphone on? My apologies.
is there a specific geographic area, a boundary that you operate within?
This is 7 counties of the CMAP region.
It is.
So yes, so we have all 7 county partners.
It
Yes.
is in
All of our member municipalities. Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you.
Gentlemen, we are running a little late here. Any other comments or questions? Gentlemen, thank you. It's obviously an exciting update and program. We look forward to having that conversation in the near future. Thank you. Moving on to item 702 on the CMAP Board update. Is there any big discussion?
No discussion here. I just wanted to note for you that we've had our attorneys in coordination with the legislation that was passed to update the authorities of the board to do contracts, excluding my contract, procurements, meeting minutes as a simple majority and not the supermajority. That is stated to go into effect on January 1 of next year. We've asked the attorneys to look at the bylaws, provide you with a version. My understanding is, unfortunately, you got a clean version, not a red line version. We will get you the red line version so that you can take a look at that. But I will be asking for approval of that in November and just sort of skip the October month. So you'll have between now and then to look at it. And just if you have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay. Under item 7, John, legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. It's a short report. Legislature adjourned last May, so there's been several bills have been acted upon by the governor since then. One of those bills was Senate Bill 3389, or what we referred to as the Regional Planning Act Modernization Bill. As a reminder for some of our newer members, thank you. This bill makes slight adjustments to the Regional Planning Act. That's our enabling statute, including reducing the number of board members in office needed to take action on specific administrative matters, as I think Aaron mentioned earlier. Thanks for your assistance on this legislation, getting it over the finish line. It's now referred to as Public Act 103-0986, and it goes into effect January 1st. Over the summer, as Aaron mentioned, we've been meeting with legislators throughout the region. We've discussed a variety of topics, including transportation, climate, water, housing, to help convey the breadth and the depth of CMAP's work. It's been a good opportunity to strengthen some existing relationships and build some new ones, as there's been some turnover in the General Assembly. If you have thoughts on members that we should be meeting with, we're happy to entertain those suggestions. Let us know if your legislators would like to have a meeting, or if you think we should go out and meet with legislators in your municipalities. This summer's also been busy with the Senate Transportation Committee's hearings on regional transit. We've been closely monitoring these hearings and responding to legislators' inquiries as they come to us. As Aaron noted, Speaker Walsh also recently announced the formation of a House working group on transportation and transit. We've been in touch with the members of that working group and offered to give them access to our resources and our analysis of the part report. Other than that, in your packet are other bills that we've been tracking and that have been signed into law by the governor this summer. We're happy to answer any questions on that legislation or any other issues relating to Springfield.
Any questions of John? Yes, Rick. Fine. We will do that for the legislators in your area. Mayor Nope, I think we met with legislators in your building over the summer a couple of times. And so we're happy to do that, and we'll contact you before we meet with them to get insight and background. Thanks again, John. Thank you. Under public comment, or I'm sorry, any other business brought before the board? Is there any public comment? None being.
Oh, you know what? Garland is on.
Oh, okay. Garland, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Bennett and everybody. It's Garland Armstrong, formerly of Des Plaines, now living in Des Moines, Iowa. How you doing, everybody?
We're doing great, John.
Well, I just have two concerns. Want y'all to watch under the radar. As you know, you heard about Greyhound Bus Depot will be closing in a couple of more weeks, and they want to divert. And that's where the situation is for me, because I have a mother who lives in a nursing home, and And there is always going to be a problem for me, especially when I have to come to Chicago by myself, especially when I get the call of the passing of her in the nursing home, and there is no bus intercity there of the Northern Hemisphere. The only alternative I would have to take is Amtrak, where I live here, and a friend of mine would have to take me down to Osceola train depot, and then it's an hour drive, and I would have to take it all the way down to Union Station and then spend some time with my friend and hop on the other train going out to Roselle. And I don't have enough money to fly out of Des Moines because it's costing too much for people with special needs. And I'm also want to piggyback what you had for the economic part for those three gentlemen who was there. Have they ever been to any disability residence for people with special needs, especially for those who needs an opportunity but don't even know the step-by-step system and don't know which way to go and where to turn to so that they can have an opportunity? Because there are some who are with special needs just feel like they're out of touch and don't know where to go to and how to be a part of society, since they feel like they're being disconnected or being isolated. So I want to recommend for those three guys who spoke there, if they ever been to a disability community, or show them a presentation or show them what is what, so they can be a part of society and not to be disconnected or be out of touch. So I think you need to talk to them about that, because somewhere down the road, if people with special needs says, where we're going to get our part of it, what happened to it, and what's going on, why we feel like we're out of touch. So you need to tell them about that, because sometimes there's a voice needs to be heard, and they never, ever, in all of those years, never been to a disability organization or a disability community to show them what is what and show them the system, how it works, step-by-step system. So I think they need that right away, and the time is now. So when are they going to get started, and show them that so that they can be a part of it? So I'll be
Thanks,
glad.
Garland.
So I'll
noted,
be glad.
Garland. We will pass that on to them, yes.
Yeah, so I'll be glad to answer any comments or questions, especially concerning about the Greyhound Bus Depot, and you can monitor it. And if anybody has anything to say about that, because that is my biggest concern. It's my heart concerning of it too. If I have to take another alternative, so monitor it very carefully and keep me posted on it if you have anything to say.
We sure will, Garland. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Garland. I know that's come up a couple times at our transportation committee, and that the stakeholders continue to talk about it too. So I appreciate it.
Any other public comments? Again, our October meeting is important. We are going to have a joint meeting with the MPO Policy Committee, so please, everybody in attendance for that. And with that in mind, the Executive Committee will meet immediately after this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor, signify by the usual manner. Motion
Aye.
carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.